Welcome to my channel, Sella Buzz. Johnny Depp is 62 years old now. He doesn't feel like he needs to prove anything to anyone anymore. For many years, people watched him in movies. He became amazing characters like Captain Jack Sparrow and Sweeney Todd and many others. He has made people happy for many years. He made millions of people laugh, cry, and think. He left a big mark on Hollywood. But today, what makes people most curious is not his movies or even his problems. It's something simple he says openly. He chooses to live alone. When people hear this, they get curious. Why would a man who has lived such a full life step back into being alone? This question stays with people because most of us think fame is like a golden ticket. We think of rooms full of laughter, lots of invitations, and knowing you'll never be alone. But for Depp, fame has been both good and bad. It gave him everything, but it also took away pieces of his peace. Think about what it would feel like if every move you made was watched closely. Every mistake made bigger, every personal heartbreak turned into a newspaper story. That was his life. When you live under such a microscope for so many years, it changes how you see life. It makes you realize that peace and privacy are worth more than people clapping for you. Living alone for Johnny Depp is not about being sad. It's not about giving up or running away. It's about taking back control of his own life. It's about finally saying, "This is my space, my time, my safe place." When he's alone, he doesn't need to act. He doesn't need to explain anything. He doesn't need to carry the weight of what everyone thinks about him. He can just be Johnny, not Captain Jack, not Edward Scissorhands, not the Hollywood star everyone expects, but just himself. That is really powerful. Of course, being alone doesn't mean he has no friends. Depp is not a man who has cut all connections. He still has his children who he loves very much. He still has close friends who understand him beyond all the fancy stuff and gossip. He still has music, his band, his art, and most importantly, his connection with millions of fans who still support him. But when the cameras turn off, when the stage lights go dark, when the crowds go home, he goes back to quiet. And that quiet is where he finds his strength. The last 10 years of his life have been really tough. The world saw him in courtrooms more than on red carpets. We saw the messy divorce, the endless court cases, the accusations, the defenses, and tons of opinions from every corner of the internet. People picked sides. People judged. People looked at every word he said and every face he made. Through it all, he was expected to stay calm. How does anyone live through that without getting hurt? How does anyone survive the storm of what everyone thinks without feeling like they need to hide? His choice to live alone starts to make sense when you think about how much noise was around him for years. When you take away the fame, Johnny Depp is someone who thinks deeply about things. He has always been more interested in creating than in celebrating. In interviews, he often plays down the idea of being a celebrity. To him, that word feels empty. He likes to think of himself as an artist, someone who shows himself through acting, music, and painting. Being alone gives him the space to do just that. In the stillness of being alone, he can write songs, draw ideas, pick up a guitar without distractions and just create for the fun of creating. Fame gave him chances, but being alone gives him freedom. But it's important to clear up something people get wrong. When people hear the words "lives alone," they often mix it up with being lonely. They picture sadness, emptiness, silence that feels heavy. But in Depp's case, living alone is not about being lonely. It's about choosing to be alone on purpose. It's about choosing who to let in and when to close the door. It's about caring about quality over quantity in friendships. He doesn't need a crowded room to feel alive. He doesn't need endless parties to feel connected. For him, one conversation with someone he trusts means more than 1,000 shallow talks with strangers. And here's something many people don't know. Johnny Depp owns homes that are almost like safe places. Castles in Europe, private homes hidden from the chaos of Hollywood, places where he can go without worry. These aren't just fancy houses. They're spaces designed to give him exactly what he needs: privacy, creativity, peace. Think about walking through the halls of a very old castle in France, or sitting in a quiet room, looking at green land where no cameras can reach, no reporters can knock, no noise can bother you. That quote as the kind of place Depp has built for himself. And it shows that his choice to live alone isn't just an accident. It's a lifestyle carefully designed to protect his peace. Experts often say that being alone, when you choose it, can be very healing. It lets the mind reset, creativity flow, and stress go away. And if you look closely, you'll notice that Depp's recent projects have a different kind of depth. Whether it's in his music with the Hollywood vampires or in his movie performances, there's a sense of thinking, of growing up, of raw honesty that wasn't always there before. It feels like being alone hasn't drained him. It has actually given him more to offer. One of Depp's most powerful quotes really captures this spirit. He once said, "I think everybody's weird. We should all celebrate our individuality and not be embarrassed or ashamed of it." Living alone is his way of celebrating his individuality. He doesn't need to follow the Hollywood lifestyle of constant spotlight. He doesn't need to follow the rules of what a star should be doing at his age. He's writing his own story, and that story happens to include a lot of quiet, thinking, and learning about himself. And yet, fans always wonder what's next. Will he make a big Hollywood comeback? Will he keep focusing on music? Will he tell more about this part of his life? The truth is, nobody knows for sure. Rumors are already spreading about new movies, new partnerships, and even more music projects. What we do know is that being alone hasn't stopped him. If anything, it has made him sharper. It has given him clarity for whatever comes next. What makes this story so easy to relate to is that many of us, even without the fame, understand the need for space. We live in a world where everyone is connected all the time. Phones buzzing, messages piling up, social media wanting attention. And sometimes you just want to shut it all off. Sometimes you want to be alone with your own thoughts. Not because you don't like people, but because you need to recharge. Johnny Depp choosing to be alone at 62 is a reminder that it's okay to step back. It's okay to choose peace over noise. It's okay to say no to the world when the world becomes too heavy. And maybe that's what makes Depp's choice so human. Under the fame, under the controversies, under the headlines, he's just a man looking for meaning, looking for balance, looking for peace. He's someone who's been celebrated and criticized, loved and hated, lifted up and torn down, all in front of millions of eyes. And through it all, he's realized that the only person who truly defines his life is himself. Living alone is not running away. It's claiming ownership of his time, his energy, his story. At 62, life takes on a very different meaning than it did in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s. It's a stage of life where time itself starts to feel more precious, where every moment carries more weight, and where the constant noise of the outside world starts to fade in importance compared to the quiet voice inside your own heart. For Johnny Depp, this phase of life has become less about chasing roles, chasing applause, or chasing acceptance, and more about pausing, thinking, and deciding what truly matters to him as a man, as an artist, and as a father. When you think about it, so much of our earlier years are spent running. We run after education, after careers, after relationships, after recognition. For someone like Depp, that running was made 100 times bigger by the intensity of Hollywood. From the very beginning, his life was thrust into the spotlight. He became a heartthrob at a young age, was cast in roles that defined generations, and turned into a household name worldwide. That kind of fame is exciting, but it also comes with a price. Your identity gets mixed up with your characters. Your personal life becomes a public topic, and your every mistake is remembered longer than your victories. At 62, Johnny Depp has lived through all of that. He's seen the highest highs and the lowest lows. He's experienced the love of millions of fans screaming his name at premieres, and he's faced the sting of tabloids tearing apart his personal struggles for profit. People took sides, people judged, people looked at every word he said and every expression he made. And through it all, he was expected to stay calm. So now when he looks around and asks himself what really matters, the answer is not the noise of Hollywood. It's not the gossip that fills magazines or the drama that cycles endlessly online. Those things used to affect him, maybe even define parts of his life, but not anymore. What matters to him now is peace. And that's something we all can relate to, whether we're famous or not. Peace is the ability to wake up in the morning and not dread the day ahead. It's the ability to sit with yourself and feel comfortable in your own skin. For Depp, peace means being able to close the door to the outside world and not hear the constant hum of cameras, speculation, and judgments. It means being able to go back into his own safe place where he can create art, play music, or simply enjoy silence without interruption. Along with peace comes creativity. Creativity has always been at the core of Johnny Depp's identity. Acting is just one outlet. He's also a passionate musician, a painter, and a storyteller. And creativity grows in being alone. When you're constantly surrounded by noise, by obligations, by people demanding your energy, it becomes harder to hear your own thoughts. But in the quiet, inspiration flows freely. That's why so many of Depp's fans notice that his most recent work, whether in movies or music, feels more raw, more personal, more meaningful. It's not because he's disconnected. It's because he's more connected to himself than ever before. Then there's being real. In a world built on fake things, where Hollywood thrives on appearances and perfection, being real becomes rare. But as Depp has grown older, he's realized that being real is the only thing that truly matters. Living alone gives him the freedom to be real, to take away the masks, to stop performing for the sake of others and simply live as himself. He doesn't need to impress anyone anymore. He doesn't need to follow an image that others expect. Instead, he can express himself exactly as he is, flaws and all, and that's what makes him real. And maybe most importantly, what matters to Johnny Depp now is connection. The kind of connection that feels genuine and soul deep, not the shallow connections that come with fame where people flock to you because of what you represent, but the kind that comes with trust, loyalty, and love. His relationship with his children, his circle of true friends, and his fans who have stood by him through thick and thin, those connections mean more to him than red carpets or Hollywood awards ever could. Living alone doesn't erase those connections. If anything, it makes them stronger because it allows him to give his energy only to the people who truly matter. Now think about this. At 62, when you've lived decades under the spotlight, wouldn't you also want quiet? Wouldn't you want to step away from the cycle of gossip and endless demands? Johnny Depp has chosen being alone not as an escape, but as a gift to himself. It's his way of honoring his health, his passions, and his peace. And while some may see living alone as a sign of sadness, in truth, it's one of the most empowering choices he could make. Living alone allows him to reset, to heal, to grow. It allows him to rediscover who Johnny is beyond the characters he's played and the scandals he's endured. It allows him to focus on his art without distraction. And it allows him to protect the realness that makes him so compelling as a person. There's also a universal lesson here. Many of us fear being alone. We think being alone means emptiness, as if being by ourselves means we're lacking something. But Depp's life shows us the opposite. Being alone when chosen on purpose can be full. It can be nourishing. It can be a source of strength rather than weakness. And that's why his story connects with so many people around the world. At 62, he's teaching us that it's okay to step away from the noise. It's okay to close the door and listen only to yourself. It's okay to value peace over popularity, being real over appearances, and real connection over shallow attention. His choice to live alone isn't about running from life. It's about embracing it fully in the way that feels truest to him, and that's something we can all learn from. Because whether we're movie stars or everyday people, the truth is the same. What matters at the end of the day is not how many people applaud you, not how many gossip about you, not how many follow your every move. What matters is whether you feel at peace in your own life. What matters is whether your creativity has space to breathe. What matters is whether you are living as your real self and connecting with people who truly see you. Johnny Depp at 62 has found those answers. And maybe, just maybe, his story encourages the rest of us to start looking for ours. So when you hear that Johnny Depp chooses to live this way, don't picture a man sitting sadly in silence. Picture an artist walking through his castle halls, drawing ideas, playing a guitar, thinking about life, smiling at the quiet and feeling at home in his own skin. That's the image that feels true. That's the Johnny Depp who exists behind the headlines. And now the question comes back to you. What do you think of Johnny Depp's choice? Do you see it as strength, as wisdom, as self-protection? Or do you think it shows just how heavy the price of fame can be? Whatever your opinion, one thing is certain. His decision is his own, and that in itself is something to respect. So as fans, as viewers, as people who have followed his journey, maybe the best thing we can do is learn from it. Learn that it's okay to step back. Learn that being alone is not the enemy. Learn that sometimes the bravest choice is the quiet one, because in the end, peace is priceless. And Johnny Depp, after everything he's been through, knows that better than anyone.